Greetings, gamers, and welcome back for yet another episode of the G3 Podcast. You're here on episode 93, and we're recording this on August 27th. So, first and foremost, it's none other than your boy. Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby. Known as Ice on all things gaming and social media. And let me say, I apologize to you guys that it has been well over a week since our last episode. Truth be told, there was a couple things going on. We had a hurricane coming over here to the West Coast. Luckily, did not hit, my home here in Vegas, but it did go ahead and mess up some other people's fun times. So that being said, we had to get that out of the way, and it was also coincidentally my anniversary weekend, so your boy was not going to be available. I could have forecasted that a little bit better, so apologies there. And the rest of the crew will be here at some point in the near future, hopefully once we get our schedules aligned. I'm literally recording this, and I'm about to fly out of here in something about 7 hours for a business trip for pretty much the entirety of next week. So we'll figure out when we can get together and have another recording. But feel free to like, subscribe, share with a friend, do all that good jazz. If you like the content that we produce and you want to see us to come back for more. And that being said, it was, of course, a jam-packed week full of
good news, everyone!
So let's talk about some of it. So first and foremost, the big thing that pretty much everybody should be tracking. Hold on. Apologies. I got to figure out where my mouse is right now. There you are. Okay, cool. So we had Gamescom. So if you were tracking, Opening Night Live has kind of been Jeff Keighley's way of going ahead. It's a partnership with Gamescom. Gamescom was in existence before Jeff really started doing this Opening Night Live piece. However, it's kind of become a staple insofar as where we can go to see maybe not new announcements, but announcements of things that maybe sometimes new announcements with things that are expounding upon information that we may have already been privy to. So there was some things of significance. So there was a new Starfield trailer. You probably have seen it by now. It's the live action one. It looked fantastic. Really got the crowd hyped up. We had something out of, I believe it's a Chinese studio. Apologies, I can't remember the name of the studio. But Black Myth Wukong, so very, look kind of soulsy, but very fantasy driven. So that one we haven't seen anything or much of for, I want to say, the better part of a year and a half, 2 years. And so this made kind of a splash at Opening Night Live. Little Nightmares 3 was announced, so if you've been a fan of that little horror franchise, that got announced. I don't believe I think they said 2024 was when you could expect that. Crimson Desert was a newer title that was announced, and it's the successor to Black Desert. So there's, if you're familiar with that, it should, in theory, be more of kind of a big action RPG. Yeah, in the sense of a big scene. Killing Floor 3 was announced. That one, I don't think anybody was really expecting, so that was kind of gruesome and awesome to check out. Rebel Moon, something out of the mind of Zack Snyder, or at least it's a comic that Zack Snyder went ahead and is now actualizing into a 2-part movie that's going to be featured on Netflix here coming up in 2024. I believe it was 2024. Tekken 8, we just saw a little bit more of that. Age of Empires 4, officially coming to Xbox consoles now, not just going to be a PC exclusive. And we saw a little bit more of Nightingale, that game. It's a fantasy, I believe it's a fantasy RPG. And right now it's destined just for Steam and Epic sometime next year. But it looked pretty cool. I mean, if you're into, I don't want to say the BioShock type games because everything kind of relates back to that at some point or another, if you're asking me. But Nightingale looked interesting. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, we got to see a huge new take on that, including what they're calling open... What were they calling it? Open combat missions. So basically, if you play Call of Duty games before, everything is kind of I don't want to say on rails, but it's kind of on rails insofar as the story campaign. This one seems to be opening up the idea of letting you go ahead and kind of wiggle around with that and do something a little bit different. If you want to have a stealth approach, you can have a stealth approach. If you want to go, all snipers, loud and proud from a distance, you should be able to do that, at least based on what we've heard of this game. But we'll find out soon enough because it's coming out, what we say, November 10th. Payday 3 went ahead and we saw a little bit more of that, including an intro by Ice-T, old school rapper from, I would say, from my generation. I don't know how many people out there in the youth in the crowd actually knew who Ice-T was. And there was a couple more things. I'm trying to hit it in broad strokes. If gaming is anything of your forte, then I would highly recommend you guys go ahead and check that out. There was also a trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, specifically talking about some of the game improvements that are coming to Cyberpunk. And these are exclusive of the paid DLC. So Cyberpunk 2077 here, in short order, will go ahead and start to have some new quality of life features and new improvements, like actual improvements to the game. Like cops won't just appear out of nowhere and start chasing you kind of deal. There would actually be some lead up to that. But there was a trailer for that, and that looked pretty good. We saw a little bit more in Mortal Kombat 1, including some announced characters there. I don't want to steal that thunder. Marvel Snap coming out on Steam, so that was something that they were pretty proud. The creative director was pretty proud to get out on stage and talk about that one. And then there was, it was hit or miss on the rest of the stuff. Alan Wake 2, we got to see another great take on that. Definitely got the crowd hyped up for that if you've been looking forward to it. So, that's all that. So again, catching up on about 2 weeks worth of news, some of the big stuff. Xbox went ahead and has introduced or they're reintroducing something of their enforcement system, a strike system, where if you get reported for poor behavior, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of narrow it down because they went into some metrics and stuff here. But the bottom line is there's going to be a total of 8 strikes possible. Of those 8 strikes, each step is going to have a new enforcement piece to that. So if you go ahead and let's say you are, using excessive profanity or something as the example that they've got listed here, you'll go ahead and you could potentially get a 1-day suspension if that is actually proven. And again, don't forget that Xbox went ahead and implemented not too long ago, or at least it was in the alpha or the insider stage. I don't know if it's made it to Gen Pop yet. But they instituted something where you can record someone's voice chats and go ahead and put them, report them basically for bad behavior. So I don't know what the 8 strikes will lead to. I think it's supposed to be essentially like a permanent ban. They didn't want to go into super detail on how far they would go. They have a picture here. I wish I could freaking see the thing. That's not what I wanted. Sorry, I'm trying to zoom in as I'm talking to you guys to make sure I could read this a little more thoroughly. Yeah, I couldn't even read that without my glasses. It's fuzzy. But basically, expect that bad stuff's going to happen. So it's all in the name of encouraging members to, play like gamers. Enjoy the freaking game. Why are you going ahead and cussing out and having a conniption over what somebody else is doing in game? Let it roll. And I can say that now because I'm a little bit older. Was I one of those dudes cussing people out on Call of Duty? Sure, probably. But it's a new age, and people were a little more easily offended. Not saying any particular age demographic. Anyways, Xbox 360, also some news out of Xbox. Unfortunately, another blast from the past, if you will. The Xbox 360 store will be closing July of 2024. I did not mean for that to rhyme. It just came out like that with due time. So understanding that it's been 18 years since the 360 launched, that's absolutely wild to me. So it's a whole person legal adulthood age this November. So bottom line, it's not going to be the end of the world. There's still, hundreds of back compat titles that you can play on your Xbox One or Xbox Series consoles from the 360 generation. The bottom line is you won't be able to buy new stuff. The new stuff, you won't be able to buy it, right? It's going to be locked behind, essentially, potentially, Game Pass if they go ahead and they reserve the rights and the opportunity to bring that content back out in the future. But if you already own all the 360 titles that you want to play, or you got them through Games with Gold, which are, a reminder, coming up here in just a couple days in September, we're going to start the new Game Pass tier, Game Pass Core, in which you will go ahead and you'll just basically get a small sampling of some games, etc., etc. But they have said that doing away with Xbox Live Gold, any of those games with Gold you had that were from the 360 generation are yours to keep no matter what happens. So yeah, just basically, if you are in the mood and trying to get any 360 games, basically go ahead and buy those before July of next year. Just go ahead and earmark that one. Something else in the way of accessories, I guess. Xbox had a lot of news this past week. I'm sorry if it seems, dominating the conversation here, but they went ahead and they said, hey, you know what? You know what would be really great? If we could wrap the console with a wrap instead of building a whole new console, which I gotta applaud them. I'm not gonna lie, I got kind of tired of a little bit of the FOMO of, oh man, they got a Halo Infinite console that immediately sold out because I was working or something happened and Walmart talked about it early and everyone and their mother jumped on it, whatever the case may be. Looking at you, Walmart Canada. This is basically an opportunity for folks to go ahead and now give the nice console a cozy blanket of color and flavor instead of just that matte black that it's kind of got going on. What does this look like? So they gave us a handy little video. There's going to be 3 different types, and what you're seeing in the video is the Starfield wrap, because we haven't heard enough about that game yet, and admittedly I am pretty excited too about it. It's coming out around the corner here, and that will most likely be something I will stop playing everything else to sink dozens of hours into. But make sure you got your backlog at the ready, because you're probably going to need a palate cleanser at some point. So as we're looking at this thing, it's a vinyl wrap. It goes ahead and it's got the Velcro that attaches in the back. I'm not going to lie, I kind of like it. Like, hi, PlayStation fan as well, right? Is it super difficult to go ahead and take off the panels on the PS5 and put on the new side panels? Like, it's not the end of the world. It's not something I could see myself wanting to do on a regular basis, where if I want to go to a friend's house and do this, that, or the other, I just want to just take some Velcro on, take some Velcro off, and go ahead and I put a wrap on. Additionally, if the Starfield one is not doing it for you, there's also going to be 2 different camos that are coming out for when you go ahead and your house is underwater, or if it is in the Arctic and you are alone and no one else is around to play with you. Either way, feel free to go ahead and pick up some of these. These are supposed to be coming out here as early as October 18th. You can go ahead and start pre-ordering, however, for $50 US on the Microsoft Store. So, what's my take? I think it's pretty cool. I kind of like them. I've been a fan and kind of wanted to get these camouflage, particularly these camouflage controllers. I don't know. It seems a lot less expensive. It's actually probably almost the same expense as getting one of those controllers nowadays, but that's besides the point. Anywho, back on the hardware train, let's talk about a real blast from the past. Atari went ahead and said, hey, you know what we haven't heard enough of lately with all this talk of Starfield and everything else? Nostalgia gaming. How about some nostalgia? For those that have been listening to the show for a while, the Atari 2600 was the first console I got to play on, so I went ahead and I got the Atari VCS when they announced that a couple of years ago, and I got it, I'm not going to lie, I got it on sale. I played a little bit. I probably need to put some video up on here if I can find a way to record. Yeah, there's a way to record. Anywho, the Atari 2600 Plus gives you a plethora of not one, but 2 consoles in one. So this Atari console coming out for $130 US. When did they say this bad boy was coming out? Let me see. It's due to be coming out November of this year, actually. And it will allow you to play not only Atari 2600, but 7800 series as well, right? Yep, 2600 and 7800. On the more positive side, because you're like, oh, well, that's great, whatever. This does come with your CX40 Plus joystick, so it's like the real deal joystick that they had from back in the day. It's pretty. I remember it fondly. It's a pretty cool joystick. It's got the rubber eyes around it. But again, if nostalgia is something you're interested in, you like the little button switches and everything like that. You don't want the super clean look. Where is it? Right behind me here. You don't want the super clean look of the Atari VCS. I mean, you can barely even tell that it's an Atari product unless it was for the little logo right there. But if if the digital stuff is not your flavor, then the Atari 2600 Plus may be for you at $130 US. I don't know why I just did that with a British accent, but never mind me. Moving right along. So we already talked a little bit about Modern Warfare 3. I'm going to tell you there's quite a bit of hype for this game, and especially now, if there is the possibility. So they gave us that Makarov is coming back. They talked about it's going to be a true sequel, and it was funny because they said it's going to be a true sequel to the last Modern Warfare game, which was the one that, last I checked, folks weren't too hot on. But they had a lot of odes to the original Modern Warfare series, like the prison and stuff like that. There was a couple things that looked almost like it was pulled straight out of the materials that they used in Warzone, because the prison that they show in the trailer, I didn't want to show the trailer because it's a super long trailer, but stuff looked very identical. Not that that's a bad thing, but nevertheless, it really is interesting me to see what's going to come of this thing in the next couple months. That game's coming right around the corner, like I said, November 10th. I have a feeling this is probably. We heard that the last Call of Duty sold gangbusters. It was something like 80 million in just a couple days. I would almost bet money that this one is going to be over 300 million. When you talk about zombies is coming back, the multiplayer, there's going to be new additions coming to Warzone, and on top of that, you have this open combat. I want to say it was open combat system. How they talked about going ahead and allowing you to just kind of work your way through the story as you saw fit, rather than go ahead and just kind of be on rails for the story. Not that the story was bad, as they played it out before, but I think when people can have a little more onus and a little more ownership in how they play these games, then it's all the better. Moving right along, we had some really great news that I'm really hoping that a lot of developers pick up on. Epic went ahead and said that they've added new tools into Unreal Engine 5 to basically now allow for, well, it's overlay, so I don't know if it's specifically restricted to Unreal 5. But they went ahead and this was actually from June of last year. They had some free PC crossplay overlay, but now they've gone ahead and they've implemented even more stuff. So now there's consistent overlay UX or user interface, a combined friends list, frictionless cross-platform account creation, integrated game invites, secure social experiences on any platform, and plug-and-play SDK, so software development kit. So what does all this mean? This means that hopefully we are moving ever closer to that world of you buy one game, you can play that game on whatever platform or hardware of your choosing, and you can play with whatever friends that you have, no matter what platform they're on, assuming that you guys aren't in some stupid console war or something like that. Anyways, why would we bring that shade in, Ice? Talking about console warring, are consoles the way of the future? Netflix doesn't think so. Netflix has now gone ahead and they have cemented themselves as something of a juggernaut. And so it's interesting, and I almost wish I had the crew on here so we could have a discussion about consolidation in the industry, because as some, Mr. Mows them down, would argue that the consolidation is a terrible thing and nothing's going to change of the the play space and the environment, the landscape by which these developers live and breathe. Netflix is here to say that's not the case. So if you remember, Netflix went ahead and bought Night Dive Studio. They were the ones that came out with After Party. I had to think for a second. After Party, Oxenfree. They also are working on Oxenfree 2. But these guys, Netflix ain't around to joke, right? So they also are going ahead and coming out with. Did I just misquote? Oxenfree 2. Ba, 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 ba. I want to say. My apologies if it's not from. I could have swore that was from Night Dive. Anyways, um, so Netflix ain't playing around. They're going ahead and they're bringing in a lot of different things. Let me go back over to the video here to show you some of the stuff that they want to introduce. They're bringing mobile games. Well, they're making mobile games. Let's start with that. So they're going to make mobile games, but they also are talking about bringing some of these show properties that they have to the mobile space. So what you're looking at right now is essentially Netflix's introduction of Love Is Blind as a game. So I don't know how many folks have watched that show, how many folks are into it. If you've ever said, damn it, why didn't he say this? Or why didn't she swoon him? I don't know. I've never really watched the show. This is honestly probably something my wife would dig. But this is going to be something of interest going forward in the future because they have something like 70 titles that Netflix is trying to go ahead and bring out across the spectrum, whether it be no crap mobile games or whether it be something that you're streaming onto your Netflix, streaming device. So again, if you've gone ahead and been around the Netflix game for a little bit, you had titles that they had before like Black Mirror, Bandersnatch. Honestly, if you're asking me, I didn't think that one came out too good. I got stuck in some logic loop. Another one was Carmen Sandiego, but they've gone ahead and they've unleashed boatloads of cash to try and go ahead and maximize their position and advance their position. How did they do this? Well, they went ahead and they brought on a couple former EA execs. If you remember, I want to say we talked about it on the show before, the former Halo co-creator, Joseph Staten. I'm always going to get in trouble when I get his name wrong. Joseph Staten went ahead and he left 343 and Microsoft to go over to Netflix. So some would allude that he got tossed a boatload of money. They've also got some former Assassin's Creed devs working. Well, they got current Assassin's Creed titles being built for Netflix. So Netflix is coming out, and it's almost positioned where, as we see, and I'm not saying this is a one for one, but as we see maybe like Activision Blizzard kind of go the way of Microsoft, being part of the Microsoft family here, in very quick fashion based on some of the latest news that they have, which I don't know why I didn't have that in the show notes. I'll talk about that in a second. But you may very well see Netflix come into the space as one of the new providers of gaming material. So for those that didn't hear some of that big news when it came to Xbox and the CMA and everything and Activision Blizzard, what they have now announced, and this was the last week, like I want to say this was the Monday of Gamescom, which was like what they just wanted to control the narrative clearly. Microsoft has entered an agreement where when the deal closes, or should the deal close, the streaming rights to ABK games will go to Ubisoft. Well, what does that exactly mean? There was a really nifty video, and man, see, this is why you guys got me. This is why I try to be as prepared as I can for you, and sometimes stuff just slips by. So there was a really great interview with Phil Spencer at Gamescom by Destin Legary. So shout out to Destin if he ever comes across this channel. I'm really impressed with his interviewing because he does not play games when it comes to some of those interviews. What you also have, so it's two different worlds. And yeah, I have to talk about this too. NVIDIA GeForce Now is going to go ahead and also get PC Game Pass games. So let's put that out there into the world. If you are a GeForce Now subscriber, go check it out, or you probably already know about it. But if there is to be a streaming title or a title from ABK that ABK produces that is going to have some streaming component to it, the rights to that are going to be reserved by Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft is going to pay Microsoft some again, this is in the hypothetical but most likely real future where the ABK deal closes and Microsoft now has fully acquired Activision Blizzard King. If that is going to be the case, Ubisoft is going to pay Microsoft a whatever the template of money is. There should most likely be, some measured amount based on how popular they think the game is going to be, and then Ubisoft gets to call the shots on what platforms will be allowed to stream said game and the criteria behind that, if it's a limited release or what have you. So I think this pretty much is nail in the coffin based on my understanding and interpretation. It seems kind of dicey, and Phil was real quick in this interview, and I apologize. I wish I would have had it on here. I wanted to blow it up like full screen and everything. I need to write these things down all the time. But he went ahead and he kind of dissuaded Destin from saying that, hey, once the deal closes, we're automatically going to get ABK games on Game Pass. That's not necessarily a one-for-one. I think we got a little spoiled when the ZeniMax Bethesda deal closed, because within a matter of like a month, you saw, especially some of the classic titles, the Dooms, some of the older Fallouts, they just magically materialize onto either the Xbox Game Pass or PC Game Pass service. And I think a lot of people are kind of getting in that mindset that, hey, this deal's going to close and all of a sudden all of those games are going to be there. Not the case. Let's be frank, that some games coming out of retirement, if you will, are going to have to go ahead and get a little, little dust off before they go ahead and get put onto these services. But Phil was quick to basically say that, hey, there's some mechanics involved in the process. It's not exactly a one-for-one or a guaranteed, but to basically understand that if it comes to streaming, that's going to be reserved for Ubisoft, whereas downloading stuff is going to come on the console. Now, if you ask me, how is this interesting? And this is something that we talked about in the chat with the hosts and I. This brings up two things in my mind. One, this supremely highlights, for me at least, how we saw in court documents when, in the FTC case, it came up where Microsoft admitted that streaming has not been as popular as they would like, right? Now, whether that is, the internet infrastructure, people going back to work, whatever the case may be, they acknowledge that streaming has not been as popular. So it's not like Microsoft is really losing anything first and foremost by that. However, this does lend to the idea Ubisoft, which has been in some financial problems in the past, they went ahead years ago, and I think we talked about this on the show. Years ago, they had to fight a hostile takeover by Vivendi. They've just had a lot of ups and downs as it comes to finances, and being one of the few privately controlled major publishers out there, they are probably prime pickings for an acquisition that would save them, because why do we go ahead and we see Assassin's Creed titles over and over lately? Why do we go ahead and see, a Tom Clancy title? Because that's where the cash is, quite frankly. They've gotten into the position, this is not a knock on them, but they've gotten into the position where they have a harder time taking risks with IPs. This is something that we all want to see, right? Starfield, as an example, and I'm sorry that I've mentioned it so much in the show. Starfield is the first new IP from Bethesda, I think they've said, in like over 2 decades. That's a big deal, especially when you're talking about Bethesda, where you know them for the Fallout, you know them for the Elder Scrolls, you know them for, the Wolfenstein games, like Doom. It goes on and on, but these are tentpole franchises. When is the last time that you've seen something brand spanking new out of them? It takes a lot of backing in order to do that. Now, Bethesda was already kind of on that track, and I think they would have sold that title, whatever platform it was coming out on, regardless. Ubisoft, I think, has a little harder time, because there's a lot of folks out there that say it's hit or miss on, how well their titles hit with the fan base, let alone with the critics. So that aside, that's the number 2 point, I think, that we kind of agreed upon in the chat. was it is very possible in the future, maybe a couple years down the line, let's talk, 6, 7, probably closer to that 10-year range, this streaming opportunity or the rights to the streaming is going to give Ubisoft a much needed inflection of cash rather than getting it from places like Saudi Arabia or China where there may be, let's just say, other concerns that some of the Western Hemisphere is concerned about when it comes to game creation or censorship. So this will give them some much needed cash. How long that lasts before they go ahead and they start looking for, let's not call it a way out, but start looking for the next opportunity, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think if anybody is on the playing field to go ahead and acquire Ubisoft in the future, you're talking Microsoft, you're talking Amazon, you're talking Netflix. Those are probably your three major ones. That's just the facts. Nintendo probably won't touch it. PlayStation doesn't have that kind of capital. They could, but they'd have to strike it big with some of these multiplayers that they're throwing out there here in the near future. All right, cool. That's enough about the news. Let's talk about Content Corner, right? So that's the new segment that we've gone ahead and introduced. This one's going to be pretty short, and I already talked way too much about Ubisoft and all that stuff. So let's go ahead and get down to the brass tacks here. The biggest thing, if there are any Elder Scrolls Online fans out there, you're about to get a really big heaping of quality of life features. So update 39, which is going to affect the base game, has a lot of great stuff coming in there. Let's see. There's going to be quest and content improvements for new players. I'm just going to hit a couple of the bullet points here. PvP death notifications. Did somebody really need to know that they just got stabbed in the heart? I don't know. That's to each their own. I need to get back into this game. I really want to. Unifying unsellable items. Placing furnishings from the inventory. There's new achievements, new endeavors, and loads of bug fixes, which we know from a Bethesda title or ZeniMax even, bugs are always apparent. And so they've had a lot of content additions to this game. I don't know why, but this really struck me as an awesome improvement. And this is coming out, when did we say? It's coming out on PC on August 21st, so it already did. And then the consoles are going to see all these improvements coming out on the 5th of September. So look forward to that. If you haven't dove into Elder Scrolls Online, apparently they're going to have a whole bunch of new quests and stuff to really onboard you pretty well. Something that also came out of Gamescom, but we kind of saved it for Content Corner. Destiny 2, The Final Shape, is going to be coming. And it seems to be basically... If I was a betting man, and I'm sorry, I probably should have had this trailer in there too. This is going to be launching February 27th of 2024. If I was a betting man, I mean, just the words alone, The Final Shape, I would almost argue that this is probably the last major content update that we're going to see for Destiny 2, as Bungie undoubtedly wants to go ahead and start moving on with it and developing what Destiny was probably always meant to be, which is, a continuous online, I don't want to say MMO, but something of that vein, right? So it looks pretty cool. Again, apologies I didn't have the trailer here. You guys love seeing my shining face as I'm, getting ready to get limited sleep before this flight. But yeah, it's coming out in February next year. It's probably going to sell like gangbusters. It's probably going to have some special stuff on PlayStation, being the new home console of Bungie. And just know that. Also, PlayStation Plus is going to unfortunately be losing some games. And this really kind of hit me because I was like, oh man, I was really looking forward to playing all these. So they'll be leaving by September 19th, it looks like. And this could be... any of these titles could leave at any point in time up till then. But Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, Watch Dogs 2, Death and Request 2, Deathloop, Chicory, A Colorful Tale, Through the Darkest of Times, and what the heck? Nidhogg 2. Sorry for any fans of that one. I don't think I caught that one on PlayStation Plus. But if those were anything of interest to you, I know for me, it was going to be the Tom Clancy games or Watch Dogs, but business trips and all this other stuff, I'm probably not going to have the time. And there's this other field of stars I want to be looking at here in the near future. That being said, it is of course time for our favorite section, Release Radar. So once again, apologies that we haven't had a show in 2 weeks. I'm not going to belabor the point and go back and talk about the releases from those last 2 weeks. We talked about some of them already here on the show, but the stuff you can look forward to is Goodbye Volcano High on PS5, 4, and PC August 29th. Samba de Amigo Party Central on Switch August 29th. Sea of Stars. I'm pretty interested in this one. Sea of Stars is going to be coming out on PS5, 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Switch, and PC August 29th. That's actually pretty impressive, and if I remember right, that one is going to be released on Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus simultaneously, so that's pretty impressive. Under the Waves, coming out on PS5, 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC August 29th. Somerville, which was previously a console release exclusive on Xbox, coming out on PS5 and PS4 August 31st, and then Trine 5: A Clockwork Conspiracy, coming out on PS5, 4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Switch, and PC August 31st. It is just wild to me, guys, that September is that close. Not because of, Starfield or anything like that, but like September really kind of marks, if you've been a fan of gaming for any length of time, really marks when we kick it up a notch insofar as the release schedule, because let's be frank, these companies are trying to get your money, especially before the holiday time. So if you're a parent, they're aiming right at you, and they're aiming at your kid to go ahead and entice them. Mommy, Daddy, please buy this for me. Please buy your games responsibly. Don't buy your 4-year-old Call of Duty. Anyways, yeah, it's going to be jam-packed. I can already look into September, and I'm seeing like 8 games in the month that are like, holy crap, holy crap, holy crap. So it's really going to be an awesome year. As soon as we can go ahead and get our stuff together, we'll start talking. We may have already started talking about our 2023 Game of the Year nominations for certain categories. But yeah, expect that it is going to be a jam-packed year, very competitive year by way of the Game Awards, and maybe you guys will get to participate with us. Check out, I don't know exactly what I'm going to put right now on the spot, but there will be a poll at the bottom of this video. So feel free to go ahead and check that out, and like, subscribe, share with a friend, do all the good stuff like we kind of talk about. Feel free to go back and check out some past episodes. Maybe there was some content that you were more thrilled about hearing from, our takes. And I say our when the other guys are here. But that being said, your visitorship, your viewership, and your listenership is always appreciated. And so with that, thank you guys. And remember, gaming's greatest generation is the one you guys are a part of.